Hi everyone, it's Bonita from Pennies to Dollars, and today I thought we would examine credit card debt and what is some of the best ways to get out from under it. We already know how we got there. We already know what situations caused that, and hopefully we have sat down and analyzed some of those reasons and tried to put some things in place to make sure that it doesn't keep creeping up on us. And before you ask, my opinion is that you should have maybe 2 to 3. If you can get by with 2, I would suggest only having about 2 credit cards. But if you have more than that, there is ways to get out of debt. And if you have debt on multiple cards, there is ways to get out of debt. But I think today we want to talk about how to analyze those credit cards and what is the best way to get our value out of them and out of using them. The first thing to do is to write down all of your credit cards. I want you to look at the interest rate, your balance. I want you to look at if there is any annual charge. A lot of times we will forget that we signed up for a card that had an annual charge. And then each year when that comes, you're like, oh my gosh, I got $35 or $99 that I didn't remember that I had to pay every year. And then in the back of your mind, you're thinking, I have got to get this stopped because now I've just had another huge charge on there that I didn't plan for. So think about those cards that has happened to you with. I know a lot of people will use American Express, or maybe even Capital One also has an annual charge. There are several like that. And if you've had a lower credit score at some point, maybe you have signed up for cards that started with an annual fee just so you could get your credit reestablished. But this is the time to review all of your cards and see what is working for you. So look at all of your interest rates, look at all of your balances, and look at all of your annual fees. And also take into consideration if any of those cards have rebates. And do you need to activate those rebates to get the maximum rebates when you use those cards? Discover has rebates and they change each quarter. So you have to activate those rebates to get the full 5% if you've used them in that category. So those are things to keep in mind to get the maximum benefit out of your credit cards. And then if you do have to use your credit cards, you need to take all of those things into consideration. Use the ones with the lowest interest rate. Use the ones that have the rebates in the categories that you're using for that period. But then you also need to review, do you really need that many cards? Is having that many cards making it more difficult for you to make the payments, to get your balances down, to get debt free? Are you thinking, which one do I have credit on, when you're pulling it out of your pocketbook instead of looking at the ways that we just talked about to try to get your balances down? Can you get that annual fee removed? Can you call them and say, hey, I've been a good customer for this long. Can I get that annual fee removed? If they say no, and sometimes they will because they'll say, oh, that's just our policy, that's just how our card is, then make a mental note of that, make a note of that on your paper, and then move on to C. Can you get a lower interest rate? Sometimes they'll give you one. During COVID, they didn't really publicize this, but cards were lowering interest rates if you called and asked them to lower it. If you called and asked them, they would lower it during COVID, but a lot of people didn't know that. But it doesn't hurt to ask, even if you have had a long standing with this card or good payment history with this card, to call and say, hey, I've been a good customer. Can you lower this interest rate? So start with that and see if you can make any progress. If you can, then reevaluate that list again with the topics that we just talked about. And will the lower interest rate cards increase your credit limit? If they will increase your credit limit, ask them while you have them on the phone, will you increase my credit limit? Right now, I've been getting notices in the mail that my credit limit has been increased. Right now, with everything going on with inflation, they are reviewing a lot of those things to try to encourage people to use the credit cards because they know money is short and they're trying to maximize their usage of their cards. So look at that. Can I get a lower interest rate? And then if you can get a lower interest rate on the cards that don't have an annual fee, get that annual fee card paid down, paid off, and shut it off. That is the best route to go. I am getting ready to cancel my Capital One card. I've had it for years. They charge $35 a year. They will not take away the annual fee, even though I have a zero balance, even though I pay my balance every month. They won't lower the interest rate. Bye-bye. So these are some things to look at. My other cards, I've been getting automatic notices in the mail that my credit limit has increased. I no longer need that other card. I have enough credit with these other cards. I don't need that other card for any reason. I haven't been using it anyway. It's had a zero balance. So there's no reason to keep it and pay an annual fee, because if I have a reason that I would need to use my extra credit, my other ones have been increased. The only trick to that is to make sure that you keep some standard cards available. Either keep a Visa or a MasterCard and maybe a Discover. But if you keep a credit union card, that's fine. They're usually a Visa or a MasterCard. But just make sure that you have a standard card, because sometimes you'll get places and they won't take Discover, or you'll get on a certain website and they won't take Discover. And so it's always good to have one basic card of like a Visa or a MasterCard. So those are my tips for today. I hope they were helpful. Let me know your thoughts and have a great weekend.